Okay, it's now 2:30, folks, so I'd like to just formally welcome you all here along this afternoon, and thank you very much indeed for joining us. And so it's a very warm welcome from me. I'm Chris Sargent, Chairman of the Trust. Welcome to our AGM for the year ending 5th of April 2021. Now, before I begin the formal meeting, I would like to inform those who don't already know of the untimely death of our former Treasurer, Clive Wilson. Clive had been Treasurer for a number of years, since 2014 in fact, and sadly he passed away last month on September the 1st. Now, we are very grateful to Clive when he answered our call for a new Treasurer in 2014 after the untimely death of John Bruman, predecessor. Clive was born in Northumberland in 1943, had a brother and sister. He became an engineer and a draftsman, initially working for the MOD in Salisbury. He rode around on a motorbike. He was married, then he was divorced, and finally settled in Potton in Bedfordshire. He was an educated family man, and he loved architecture and engineering, but his real passion in life, was sport. Clive played rugby, particularly in his earlier years, then golf and cricket at different stages of life, and he also managed a junior football team. He was a pretty busy guy. And his athletic prowess, playing cricket in the latter years, earned him the name Clive the Dive, he was known as. His greatest glory probably being when he played for Hearts Seniors for a number of years. He played in 200 games and he scored 5,000 runs. A magnificent achievement. I'm sure England would be glad of him right now, thankfully. Our thoughts, anyway, are with his family at this very difficult time. So there's Clive and his cricket bat in the picture there as well. And I've got to tell you, some of his colleagues from former teams, particularly his rugby team, turned up at his funeral in their rugby kit, and there were over 150 people turned out to send him off. So it was a great tribute to him. So moving on to the meeting, in today's annual report, the financial statements were initially in fact drafted by Clive, but have been completed by Mike Beckley, who joined us last year, who will be introducing them during this meeting. And Mike Beckley will also be in due course taking over as our honorary secretary, as I'll come to later. Now, we're still going through unprecedented times at the present, and as we're unable to meet together in person again this year, we need just to adapt ourselves to our friend Zoom, and how to raise questions and how to vote on resolutions as they come up. So just before we get started on the formal agenda, I'd just like to invite my colleague and Deputy Chair Clive Johnson just to explain how we'd like to handle these matters this afternoon. So please welcome Clive.
Thank you, Chris. As you say, you asked me to be your deputy in July this year, which I was glad to accept. I'm going to try and help you all a little bit with Zoom on your device here as to what you need to do. But these instructions here are largely for a Windows computer, and I can't necessarily tell you exactly how the controls will be if you're not using a Windows computer, because it will be different on each type of device. There are two basic controls that we'll be using. You're welcome to use the chat button to raise questions, and we will answer those to the best of our ability. And when we come to voting, there is an option called raise hand within Zoom, which for me is within reactions to vote. And that results in a little yellow hand appearing on the screen to show that you voted in that particular, in whatever direction is called out at that time. If you can't find this, then physically raise your hand, and our operations director, Tony Bardwell, has volunteered to act as teller and count all those hands. I think that's the main things. I'm going to come out of screen sharing at this stage so that you can see more people, and I'll be displaying more information in due course when we come to it.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Clive. Clive, just one more sort of onus for you. Can we just confirm that we have a quorum here this afternoon?
It's perhaps for the honorary secretary rather than me, but the last time I looked, it is 10 people for a quorum at the AGM, and we have just reached 30.
Okay, so we confirm that we have a quorum, Jenny, for the. So introduce Jenny Bryce, who's our secretary. And Jenny, have we any apologies for absence?
Yes, I've received 10 apologies for absence from John Ingleby, David White, Tom Beeston, Eugene Blackmore, Marion Clark, Bridget and Tom Chevalier, Leander Richardson, John Bryce, and Liz Norris.
Okay, thank you very much. So if we could record those again for the minutes. And coming now to the minutes of last year, the 2020 AGM, which is on the 30th of October. I believe we circulated copies of those minutes, and here they are. Are there any matters arising or issues in relation to those, or can we propose acceptance of them?
I can vote or anything if the video's not on, can you? They're saying to raise your hand, but I see if we raise our hand.
Right, so would someone like to propose acceptance of those minutes? If you just raise a hand, would be good.
That's Howard, is it?
Yeah, did we confirm that was Howard, was it?
Yes.
Howard, sorry, what's your second name?
Howard Lawrence.
Oh, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much indeed, Howard.
So I've just gone in on the tablet. I don't normally use the tablet. My wife's on my laptop, so I'm trying to find my way around. Apologies.
Well, we can see you, it's all right. Welcome anyway. And could we have a seconder, please? Yes, that's Peter Bird, membership. Thank you very much indeed. And would you please, if you vote to accept, please raise a hand. Okay. Anybody against? Don't raise anything.
Sorry, one more thing there. If we move on from votes in favour to votes against, those who are in favour need to lower their hand. Sorry if that's stating the obvious.
There's two of us. So okay.
Yes, if you've raised a yellow hand, could you now cancel it by pressing the same button again? Okay. There's Les and Phyllis, I think, too.
Yeah. Reactions.
Yeah, just reactions and
Lower hand.
Okay. That's it. Yeah, you got it. Phyllis and Les, you got it now. Yes, thank you very much. It's very educational, isn't it, this afternoon? Are there any matters arising from last year's minutes now, please?
Shouldn't take matters arising. Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm assuming there aren't. All right. Oh, just pardon me one moment. Hello. Could I call you back a little bit later, just in the middle of a Zoom AGM?
Yes,
sir. Yeah, sorry.
Audio is on.
So, the Chairman's report then for the forthcoming year. So, the year to April the 5th, actually, of this year was one of great progress, with the pace of our restoration gaining momentum, despite, or probably, I think, perhaps because of the COVID pandemic. Now, whilst work on the site was interrupted by lockdowns, we more than made up for this lost time, thanks to the many additional skilled and enthusiastic new volunteers who joined us over that period, and the able leadership of our operations director, Tony Bardwell. And the extra volunteers enabled us to run 2-week work parties instead of one, more than doubling our productivity and making more efficient use of the hired plant once we were allowed back on site. So that turned out to be a plus factor. And now during the earlier lockdowns, we took the opportunity to update our working practices and our method statement and all of the backroom things that we probably knew we'd got to do but hadn't managed to achieve, and to research and eventually install new finance and membership systems. And on the finance system, I should remind you that up until as recently as 2014, all our financial bookkeeping, everything else, was kept on handwritten ledgers, and we've moved on a good deal from that now. Now, once we were permitted back on site after the lockdown, the early ones, a thorough program of training and recertification of our volunteers was carried out, particularly in the use of the heavy machinery that's required to do the work that we do online. And also, we installed extra COVID protection facilities and welfare and sanitation along the site. In addition to that, the work that we do on site was planned by Tony and his colleagues to have small groups working at different locations to enable proper social distancing. And this point, I just want to hand over to Clive again, just to show just a handful of slides of one or two of the things that were happening during this particular period.
Thanks, Chris. So here is a slide taken last December in the middle of the financial year in question, showing the view from Bridge 4 looking back towards Little Tring. It does demonstrate some progress to that date, but I can assure you that the scene from Bridge 4 now looks nothing like this because we've got so much further since. In the foreground, you can see brick walls that have been built to join up between the new Bridge 4 that the photographer is standing on and the old Bridge 4 remains, which are the crumbling brickwork immediately beyond the new walls you can see there. During the rest of the financial year in question and up to date, we have almost finished, our brilliant brickies have almost finished restoring the extensive remains of the brick wall. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but in case you can't, we discovered that the lead-in brick wall actually went back almost to the green hut you can see on the bank. So we had to get that green hut down, dig all that away, and we have brought in large amounts of old-looking brickwork and proper old-fashioned lime mortar, which we've been working on ever since. And then beyond that, in the middle distance here, was some of the worst and deepest and sloppiest mud we had encountered at the date of this photo. And it is no more. Since the financial year, the volunteers have made brilliant progress under Tony's plan to not merely cap the pipeline that was underneath it, but by broadening that capping a little bit and using just a little bit more ready-mix concrete, we've been able to lay it very much more quickly.
She seems to have finished.
And
while I was fiddling around trying to sort you out. So I don't know what's going on, so you may as well have the laptop if you want it.
Sorry, I was just stopping for a moment there. So the concrete road has, since the financial year,
You want it or?
most of the way back to Little Tring, which is fantastic progress. The next thing that was completed in the year in question was the remains at White Houses. So I thought I'd go back a bit out here to 2008 before we started. You see the hawthorn scrub on the bank and a crumbling remains of the inlet arches. And in August 2013, it was repaired, and that was all done obviously some time ago, but that still left it in a state where there was considerable concrete hidden under the mud here, which boats would have beached on, and there would have been all sorts of problems with that. It took considerable time to agree a plan with Canal and River Trust as to how we could address this, And in the year in question, we finally did address it. So here, as we restarted in July the 2020 after the first lockdown, here was the scene with crumbling brickwork for the boats to go aground on, and even an inlet pipe here, a manhole here, right in the way of the navigation. So during the second half of last year, whenever we weren't locked down, we have built out walls to protect this. In this first shot, you can only see the foundation of this in concrete, in mass concrete blocks, but very quickly that was protected with brickwork. And before I continue this sequence, I'd like to draw your attention to the extreme left and right of the picture. And you'll see that as part of our commitment to the environment and well-being and biodiversity, we've changed the design of our concrete 45-degree walls to incorporate what we're calling animal steps above where the water level will be. A concern was expressed that wild animals, and indeed dogs who go for a swim, would be unable to get out. So here's the change that we've made, either where we found that animals would want to get in and out to keep things safe for them. So after September, we did some more bricking in October. November was a lockdown, back again on site in December, and there's the job all done. So passing boats will not be able to run themselves into any harm. A beautiful job's been done here by our experienced brickies, and we were able to draw in bricklayers to help us from outside our normal pool of volunteers, which was great. And since then, the Tidy Friday group in particular have gone a bit further than that sad looking picnic bench you can see up there, but perhaps that's a story for another time. The next thing that we have started on and got further with since is this is a vision. This is a view taken from a little above the ground of the one end of the tip-in fill as it skirts Little Tring Farm. So the winding hole is bottom right-hand corner, just off the edge here. And we have dug down into the infill material and stacked some of it up there. We actually then went on to do a trial removal of some of the material from site to test the process. Since then, we've cleared out everything else that was stored on top of the tip and replaced that with a lot of excavated clay material from further down the canal. And our operations director has now got a detailed plan as to how all this can be removed, which only, as you're about to find out, needs a little matter of quite a lot of money. And finally, here is the view again looking back into Bridge 4 and the stop planks in place at Bridge 4, waiting for Canal and River Trust to give us the go-ahead to re-water the canal back to Bridge 4A. We are still working with Canal and River Trust on the details of the permission they will be giving us. That's the slides I wanted to show you, so I'll now hand back to Chris Sargent for the rest of his chairman's report.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Clive. And as Clive said, we've made a huge amount of progress, and all of that brickwork he was alluding to there was using heritage bricks and lime mortar, and that's a skilled job in itself. And we put out an appeal for more bricklayers experienced in those skills, put it out on Facebook in fact, and within a matter of a day or two, we got 3 excellent volunteers came along and joined us who have still contributed towards that finished result. So great credit to them, and thanks for their help. As I mentioned just before we showed the slides, we've updated our financial systems, and that has made the job of managing things a great deal easier, because with 700 or so member records to keep up to date with subscriptions and indeed 100 club submissions, there are a lot of individual transactions, and now most of that is gradually beginning to get automated to our systems, and so that whereas before, most of the money that was coming in from those subscriptions was through cheques. And that became a difficult subject during the pandemic because banks were already closing in droves anyway, and if people were in lockdown, it was very difficult to get out and go to a bank to pay cheques in. But what we had managed to do during that period was to get signed up to a facility with one of our banks to use a cheque scanning process at home using a mobile phone app, in point of fact, so that cheques would come in, our membership secretary is able to scan them on his phone. It automatically pays the cheque into the bank and records it on our finance system at the same time. And the actual process is exactly the same that happens if you take a cheque into a bank, just that you can use it with a phone app to do it yourself with appropriate security attached. So that's been a great move forward. And it's part of what I've described in the past as using 21st technology for 18th century restoration. So whilst we also did that, we are, of course, continuing to encourage our members to use direct debits to pay these subscriptions as far as possible, which makes the process even simpler. And it reduces the workload on the people at our end who've got to do it. And that's a great asset as well. And I would just say to you that the new system that we applied now for the finance system is the Xero system, which you have seen it widely advertised. It's very much gained the support of Ashby's, our accountants, who also use it, and they have about 15 or 20 of their own clients using it as well. And that's proving a great deal of help to them in actually checking our figures as auditors at the year end. So works were focused, as Clive has mentioned, on the areas around White Houses to Bridge 4 and how to preserve those historic swing bridge abutments. If you walk along there now, you'll see that brickwork virtually finished. So if you want to see a bit more detail of that, there's more written detail in the annual report itself, which you've had copies of, and lots of stuff on our website. Now, the website itself was fully redeveloped during this period, and in its new form, it was launched around, I think it was the 20th of November of last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So extensive investigations by Tony Bardwell, our operations director, and members of the team eventually led us to find an acceptable and practical way of dealing with the old domestic tip that Clive showed a picture of a few minutes ago. And that's now been proven with a trial excavation, and all we need to do to go forward is to be able to afford to pay for it. And that is going to be quite a significant amount of money, which we'll return to in a moment. In the environmental sphere, another 400 trees were planted during December of 2020. And we've got a further batch coming up next year. So we've already planted, I think, about 1,000 trees and some more coming towards the end of November this year, next month, in point of fact. So during the pandemic, unfortunately, we were unable to run any of our normal events, but we hope that once again we can do some of these next year when hopefully conditions will allow. And we've got plans to include regular guided walks, which probably start from Mead's Farm Shop at Willstone, and Rebound Bar Open Days, probably from the same venue. And as some of you may know, Mead's have been redeveloping their property, and they've got a new sort of cafe restaurant being built, which opens out onto their big field at the back, which is an ideal venue for events, loads of room for parking, they've got loads of picnic tables, and they welcome the fact that we'd like to use it. Coming towards the end of this report, but during the period, we restructured the way we manage ourselves, and we separated the functions of governance and operations, which were previously combined through council meetings. And that separation of function is something that comes highly recommended in charities in general and by in the Waterways Association in particular. And I think it's to our benefit. So what we now do is to have 4 full council meetings, which are devoted to governance per year, and this AGM is one of those 4, and the other 3 are run quarterly, and then run our regular operations through 4 subgroups, which are operations, finance, marketing, and partnership. And we have a meeting on Zoom currently on a Monday each week, and that's proven its worth in terms of enabling more responsive decision making. It's reducing delays, and it's producing actually greater satisfaction for more people being involved as well. So it appears to be working to our benefit. So in conclusion, I want to thank all of our volunteers, our council members, and all of those who work tirelessly on site, and those behind the scenes for the benefit of the trust, and of course you, our loyal members, for your support. Really thank you very much indeed. So at this point, I want to now hand over to Mike Beckley, who, as I explained earlier, has finalised our annual report, and we'll just talk you through a little bit of it and the highlights on screen now. So Mike, the floor is yours.
Okay. Okay, well, I think as you can see, the annual report and accounts coming up. I should explain first that I'm just doing this as a one-off this year, following the death of Clive Wilson, as Chris mentioned earlier. And this is also the first year that the accounts have been created directly from the Xero accounting system, which I set up last year, as Chris mentioned earlier. So I've therefore been involved throughout the year in the accounting process. Xero, which is spelled with an X, is an excellent cloud-based small business system. And as Chris mentioned, it's also used by our accountants, which helps us with the reconciliation there. It also links together with the membership system, which is called Whitefuse. And the combination of the 2 systems does significantly advance our management systems, give us a much better overview of the activities on a monthly basis. However, from now on, finance will be responsibility of Paul Armstrong. Paul's here today, I think, who is taking over the treasurer role, while I'll be transferring to the honorary secretary role on the 1st of December, when John Rowe plans to retire from those duties. Now, if you go to the report and accounts, I think brought up page 6, is it? As the report and activities have already been summarised by Clive and Chris, so I'm just going straight to page 6 on the report and activities, where halfway down the page, towards the bottom of the screen there, it notes that the trust incurred an excess of expenditure over income for the year of £125,610, but that included restoration costs of £139,544. And just a bit lower on the same page, there's a little note which says the trust will need in the region of £750,000 during the next 3 years, over and above present funds, just to complete the works necessary to enable rewatering of the bridge from Bridge 4 to the Little Tring Bund. So that's a pretty large sum of money that we've got to find at some time over the next 3 years. So these are very important comments, which I'll go on to explain in a bit more detail. So we go to the income and expenditure account on page 9. We can see there at the first point that the income to the trust at 25,527 decreased significantly compared to the previous year. I think probably it's now due to COVID, with a decrease in donations and so on. While the costs of restoration showed a significant increase despite the effects of the pandemic. And as Chris mentioned, this has been achieved by an increase in the number of volunteers, which enabled more work parties to be set up and progress the work faster than previously. Now, we're already more than halfway through the 2021-22 financial year. I can report that income has recovered due to a substantial increase in donations during the years to date. And so we fully expect that by the end of the year, income will be at or above the same level as 2020, about £52,000. However, all the indications are that the restoration costs will also show a further increase. So the net expenditure for this year will probably show a further deficit of at least 125,000. So if we now go to the balance sheet on page 10, we can see there that because of the results for the previous year, the total funds of the trust have decreased from 639,587 to 513,977. Nevertheless, we can see that as at 5th of April, there was still £506,495 cash in the bank. So at first sight, it might seem surprising that we're predicting a further cash commitment on top of that of £750,000. But because of the deficit in the current year, which I'd mentioned just now, we're expecting cash to be below £400,000 by April 2022. And whereas over the next 3 years, the amount planned to be spent on restoration will significantly increase to more than 350,000 per year as we finally remove the old refuse tip and complete the restoration of the final dry section to Little Tring, so that by 2025, the canal will be back in water for the whole of its length for the first time in more than 100 years. So that's very important over the next 3 years that we have that significant expenditure, which will drain the funds and require more funds to be raised. So your directors are therefore very actively pursuing ways to raise this additional £750,000. And this includes applications, for example, to National Lottery Heritage Fund and to local councils. We will also need to review our current levels of income, leading probably to an increase in subscription rates, which last changed about 9 years ago. And we'll also be very much looking for further donations from members, which can now be easily set up using our new website in order to meet the exceptional costs of this very critical period in the history of the organisation. Now, all these financial statements are further explained in the notes, which I wasn't going to go through today, but we would welcome any questions and comments on this report.
Thank you, Mike. So are there any questions? If you'd like to indicate, raise a hand if you'd like to raise a question, or put it on the chat option as we mentioned to begin with. Yeah. So if there are no questions, well, Clive, would you like to just read out the question that we had in advance from a member?
So a member wrote to us just a couple of days ago and said, I would like a statement from the council at the AGM concerning the risk to the source of Wendover Arm from HS2 construction, as suggested here, and what action the trust is taking. And the member went on to say he was unable to join in person, but would be content for the response either to be recorded in the minutes, copied separately to the members, or published on there, and I assume he means website.
Okay, so on behalf of Canal River Trust, who were kind enough to get back in touch with me yesterday, work actually to assess the potential interference to the aquifers at Wendover is still going on, has been going on for some considerable time. And there is no definitive response yet. However, two members of HS2's team, because they've got nationwide issues with HS2 going up and down the canal, as you can appreciate. So two members of HS2's team have an update meeting with HS2 and with Kia contractors and the consultants Arcadis on the 5th of November, which is actually a week on Friday. And at this meeting, we'll be provided, they are saying, with an update on the various modelling activities, the impact monitoring, and any mitigation proposals relating to the Trust's water supplies at Wendover and the reservoir at Western Turville. So that's the statement as of yesterday from Canada River Trust, and we will get more information after that meeting a week on Friday. Okay. Thank you very much. So just ask one more. Are there any other questions, anyone? As if not, I'd like to ask for a proposer and seconder to accept the report and accounts as we've just presented them. So could we have a proposer, please?
Peter Elwin.
Peter Elwin has raised a hand, yes. And a seconder, please, could we? Thank you, Steve Chapman. And those in favour, would you raise a hand, please, or give us a wave? No. And if we could cancel the hands now, and then we can go to anyone against. Peter Lockett, you've still got your hand up from previously.
I can't get it to disappear.
Okay. So verbally, would you end? Okay, fine, that's lovely. Yeah,
It's gone now.
I think
Yeah.
those. Tony, do you agree? Those are both carried.
Tony's on mute.
Yeah, it's carried easily.
Yeah.
No
Okay.
objection.
Thank you very much. So those reports and accounts are now agreed. And moving on to the next item. Again, it's a vote. We'd like a proposer and a seconder to reappoint Ashby's as our accountants and independent examiner. So first of all, a proposer, please, for Ashby's. So Mike Beckley, I think, was first to show there. And a seconder, Bob Wheel. And all in favour, please. Please show with a hand or a wave or a gesture. No, we won't do the gestures yet. And then anyone against? Tony?
None against and quite overwhelming pass.
Okay, carried. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much indeed for that. Now, the next item on the agenda is to elect the new members of council and indeed to announce those who are stepping down from council. So, John Rowe, would you like to take the floor, please, to run through that? John, are you there? I think John has disappeared off screen. He was here a few minutes ago.
Oh, he's still there. He's muted.
John, you need to unmute.
John, you need to unmute.
That's it. He's done it.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you now, John. Yes, well done.
Right, sorry. Well, Leander Richardson resigned earlier in the year. Ben Grinstead and Doug Pell have just resigned from the date of the AGM. And Clive Wilson, of course, died in September. There are 5 people standing for re-election: me, John Rowe, Bob Wall, Chris Sargent, Peter Lockett, and Carol Williams. And there are 4 new trustees: Steve Chapman, William Matthew, Mike Beckley, and Paul Armstrong. So could we have a proposer to elect them all? I think we might as well elect them all in one go.
Yeah. So Peter Bird, I think, proposer.
And a seconder.
That's
Campbell.
Boyd Williams. Boyd Williams.
Williams. Right, all in favour? Anyone against?
Some people have left their hands up, so it's hard to tell. But it's pretty overwhelming majority for.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hand it back to you, Chris.
Oh, thank you very much indeed, John. Thank you for that. So can I just first of all thank those who have are standing down this time. Thank Leander in first of all. Leander is not departing from the trust at all. She's a loyal member of the volunteers on site and is continuing to do that. We didn't mention IT. Ben Grinstead is also stepping down, by the way.
Yeah, I did mention him.
Did you mention? Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. And Doug Pell has moved on to do a very important job for us. He's helping to organise our work parties, which is becomes even more onerous with the number of work parties that we have, and the number of volunteers we have to manage. So very welcome and pleased to have Doug into that role. So thank you to all of those. And welcome to the new members, Steve and William Matthew, both very valued members of the restoration team now. William is in fact the youngest volunteer that we have on the books at age 22. Fantastic driver of heavy excavators. And so if you want to see how to drive an excavator, just go and watch William in action. It's fantastic. And Mike comes from a financial-based background. He's going to be taking over the job of ONSEC. And Paul Armstrong, who's also been in a sort of finance-based world in his life, has very kindly joined us to become our treasurer. So welcome to all of those, and we do hope you'll enjoy working with us to complete the task that we have in hand. So finally, is there any other business before we close the formal part of the meeting? It doesn't quite finish the meeting in total, but just for the formal part of the meeting, is there any other business, anybody?
I see a hand from Boyd.
Hello?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hello.
Oh, hello. Just a quickie.
Yeah, Boyd, hi.
Say that I am working on the update video as we speak. Got a couple of more bits I want to film and then add to it. And and my suggestion, once it's done and approved and it goes online, as a suggestion, everybody has friends and everything on Facebook. I will be doing the same, to tell them to look on the website to view the update, because the more we get as many of the public aware of what we're doing, the more chance we've got of getting it all done and finished in good as it's been done. So yeah, just so you know, I'm working on it. With the pandemic, I was waiting for things to finish, but I'm now going to complete it in the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Boyd, and we'll look forward to that.
Okay.
Is there any other business, Clive?
Chris, did you mean to say something about John Rowe?
John Rowe is, yes, he's staying on council and will be, actually, he's very keen his walker, John. He's going to help us with some of the regular monthly walks that we're going to be planning going forward. I really appreciate that.
But we obviously appreciate his long extended service in the honorary secretary role, which
absolutely, yes. John's done a magnificent job, and yeah. But he'll be handing over to to Mike as of the 1st of December. And thank you very much indeed, John, for all the service you've given to the trust so far. So it's really appreciated.
I originally joined as a Chiltern Society representative on the council. But that was years ago. They no longer have a representative now, I don't.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a role you can undertake again as in the future.
Because we are in fact renewing our involvement with the Chiltern Society. I'm at their AGM on Saturday.
Yes, and Peter Elwin's very much in touch with the Chiltern Society at the moment, and as well. So that's very opportune, John, that you mentioned that. So if there are no other business, I'm going to close now the formal part of the meeting, and it's the time is 3:15 p.m. Jenny, for the purpose of the minutes, and there are a couple of things we'd like to take the opportunity to bring into your attention, and I want to hand over to Bob Wheel for a few moments to talk about our new working name. So Bob, over to you. You need to unmute. Bob.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, got it. Yes.
Okay. That should be me, but it's not. It's a nice picture of something that says marketing. Yeah. I'm going to start with an apology. I know you shouldn't, but I'm going to start with an apology. I'm giving you this presentation for the first time I've ever done it on this device. It's a touchscreen device. I've got fat fingers. It's probably going to go wrong. But if it does, bear with me. We'll sort it out. At the very worst, I'll just talk without pictures. Second reason for apologies is that I'm going to give you information which you probably know already. Certainly, if you're on council, you should know this. And if you're a member and you've been reading the newsletter avidly and following the website, you will know what I'm about to tell you. But nevertheless, please listen with interest. There'll be an opportunity at the end to ask questions. What does the Trust Marketing Group do? Who's in the group? Well, before we organised into groups, council was simply a collection of enthusiastic individuals, each doing what each considered best. All in all, a lot of effort resulted in a reasonable job being done, but without a whole lot of coordination and consistency of effort. The volume of topics needing discussion in our regular council meetings seemed to grow exponentially. In fact, the large variety of issues being looked at meant that sometimes it seemed that questions were being discussed ad infinitum, but without a resolution. We additionally recognised that the Trust needed to be successful in gaining support, raising funds, and winning grant applications from external bodies. We needed to give these bodies a clear and unified impression of who we are and what we're about. So to give ourselves more flexibility and to speed up decision making, we organise ourselves into working groups, as has already been mentioned, each with the responsibility and authority to deal with relevant actions and issues. Restoration, you've seen this photograph before. Restoration and finance were relatively easy groups to define. The task of seeking external partners resulted in the partnership group. The rest of our activities fell under various guises such as events, newsletter, publications, publicity, sales, social media, talks, and website. These were all put under the umbrella of one group, and we decided to call ourselves marketing. Now, we are unusual in that although we're called marketing, we have no specific experience or expertise in the art or science of marketing. Maybe we need to look at that for the future. It's fair to say we would welcome additional marketing expertise within our group. The driving force behind the setting up of the marketing group was the need for greater consistency for the various actions and activities undertaken by the Trust, and the belief that by gathering these activities into one group would help us go some way to achieving this. We also realised early on that the Trust needed to have a higher profile, and to be easily recognized for who we are and what we do. To help achieve this, an essential step was to have uniformity of appearance with the format of our communications. We also need an up-to-date image and identity. Hence, it was decided to adopt a new name, redesign our logo, and take steps to try and make sure we all presented a common and memorable face to the world. We could have made a complete change to our name legally, but the easiest way for us to adopt a new name and keep costs down is to take on a working name as an alternative to our usual name. What's the difference between changing our name and legally adopting a working name? Changing our name would mean a change to what we call ourselves, a change to all our legal documents and registrations, new financial arrangements, new publicity materials, and so on. At a stroke, on a given date, our old name becomes invalid and a new name comes into play for everything, everywhere, and significant costs are involved. Now, we opted for a gentler approach. By adopting an alternative name, we're able to use this name for all our public-facing communications. That means describing who we are in all our publicity, brochures, letters, websites, etc. Our Wendover Arm Trust name is, however, retained. We keep it, and we use it for financial dealings and some regulatory references. This duality is unlikely to cause major conflict or confusion in the future, especially when we take care to give clear information as necessary to donors, members, suppliers, and other interested parties. So in practice, if I want to give money to the trust, I simply continue to make my check out to Wendover Arm Trust. Time will tell if this working name arrangement continues indefinitely. It may well do. Our working name was not so difficult to come up with. Although we briefly flirted with the name Chiltern Canal Trust, we actually simply reflected the long-established use of the description Wendover Canal in local and colloquial parlance. And that's what we came up with, Wendover Canal Trust. Our old logo would obviously bear no relation to our new name, and also suffers from a couple of other disadvantages, such as a lack of general relevance and out-of-date colour. So we commissioned a more relevant logo. Here you see a montage of all the different versions of the logo. The main logo, which is titled main logo on the left there, is the one you'll see on portrait documents, and the one underneath it on landscape. The ones in the middle are the reverse of that, where the colour is appropriate. And on the right, if you have no access to colour, maybe an older printer or something, then that's the black and white versions. Our thanks are due to Mr. Aaron Percival, who gave us these designs. Along with the logo, we introduced our underlying themes of restoration, biodiversity and well-being, and I consider this picture to nicely show biodiversity and well-being. These are swans feel nice. These are themes increasingly focused on by grant-giving bodies, and we want to miss no opportunity to emphasize our aims. In combination, our themes and logo drag us inexorably into the 21st century, and they're distinctive, memorable, and easily recognizable. On certain documents and screens, our new logo, complete with our themes and graphic, appear together as a top banner, giving a colorful and distinctive identity. But it's not enough to have a shiny new logo and identity if we don't each of us use them in the same way. So we also commissioned a style guide to have as a reference and to show all of us how to best use our communications from a design point of view. Communications, that's emails, notices, newsletters, website, letters, and the rest. Now, making a change to all that is clearly a big job, especially with limited resources. We're not a large company with IT, public relations, press office, marketing departments at our disposal. So the changes inevitably had to be incremental and spread over a period of months. The first major change you'll have noticed is the newsletter format was updated. Old one, new one. Followed swiftly by our website. The website redesign also is in parallel with significant changes to our website and email names and addresses and behind the scene message routing. To bring us more in line with our charity status and normal usage of names and addresses. We're no longer a .co.uk site. We are now a .org.uk site. We are a charity, not a profit-making trading company. Our website is www.wendovercanal.org.uk. With the increasing use of emails and other digital messaging, written letters are used less and less. With postage rates being what they are, that's probably a good thing. Nevertheless, we still need a clear corporate look for the letters we do write. So our style guide also includes a Canal Trust format for letters too. Adopting a common and unfamiliar style does take time, because some of the steps require each of us to change the format in the way we communicate. For example, with email signatures. The two versions I use are shown here. One is for emails to external contacts on the left, with our logo and themes visible. The one on the right is for internal mail, where the need for fancy graphics is not so great. You may notice that we're still in the process of making these changes, especially to our email signatures, and progress varies with the individual. Getting everyone to change the way they work has been compared to the task of herding cats. But we are getting there. Updates to the formats of our published leaflets and sales goods like clothing will be as and when current stocks run down, or when revision is made necessary by other reasons. The next major task for marketing is to revise, update, and replace the extremely varied and quite often obsolete collection of displays and signs which have grown up along the canal. This review job will take a significant effort with inevitable costs and an extended time to complete. That's because it's a big job. Now, all of the above would not have been and will not be possible without the enthusiastic and committed involvement of our group members, who are mostly, but not exclusively, council members, and to whom we all owe our thanks. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you very much indeed, Bob. That was very clearly explained. Thank you. And I commend you, to all of our members to understand what we're doing and perhaps pass it on to friends and colleagues who might be interested in the canal as well. And there are just two more things we need to do this afternoon. Just a few very short words from me on the future, and then we're going to go on to our Club 100 draw with Peter Bird in a moment. So, Clive, if I can share screen just to show a few passing comments for the future, please. Okay. So just very briefly, the canals started, the age of canals was between 1760 and 1840, the Industrial Revolution, and scenes like this sprang up all over the country. But you just fast forward very quickly 200 years. This is what canals are all about now. It's all about leisure and well-being, and this is the story of the Wendover Arm. And over the period of the restoration, we've gradually opened up more of the canal into the form that you see here on the right, and that's our intention as we go further and further. So the usage of the canals, far from being the industrial heartland of the land now, it really is a leisure park. And in the terms of the Wendover Arm, it's a linear park, and the whole of the area through, for example, the area of Holton is going to be redeveloped, will become known as a linear green park. The canal is the centre of all that, for all of the activities that you see here. So over the next few years, the challenge for us and our successors in the trust is to encourage the restoration of the areas that need further attention in those areas, to enable more public benefit and more usage and more enjoyment in this area of leisure and fresh air, against the background of industrial urbanisation and more housing being built and all that sort of thing. So that's what we're about, and that's what we have to emphasise when we're making applications for money from funders. So much more of this sort of thing, the peace and tranquility of the countryside. The Wendover Arm, as you see it here, the Wendover Canal from Wendover through to Bulbourne there. The area in dotted has been the area that we've been concentrating on over the past years, and we've made very significant progress towards wearing out. And the canal starts from Wendover with the springs there shown down and takes us through to Bulbourne, where it joins up with the Grand Union. And its sole reason for being built was to bring water from these springs in Wendover to the main line. And unless the water gets there, eventually the main line would draw it. And if you go to the right here, you go to London. If you go to the left, you go to Birmingham. You've got no water, you don't go anywhere. And so once the restoration is complete and the whole thing is joined up, that water from Wendover will once again flow by natural gravity direct to the main line. And the need for pumping in between, at the moment, it goes through an underbed pump, goes down into Willstone Reservoir, has to be pumped up again through a Creeford pumping station to top up the main line as required. So that's going to save quite a considerable amount of money in terms of pumping. It's a very green and positive. The White Houses area that we talked about earlier is just there, and you can see, as Clive showed, what progress we've made there. And that acts also as a levelling point for the depth of the water throughout the canal. So again, it's returning to its original function when it was built in the 1790s. So there it was today, and that's how it looked as of last Christmas time, when the final brickwork had been finished. It's a castle in the canal, if you can. When the rewatering is done, as it will be very shortly now, the initial water depth will be up to this platform level here, and then progressively that will be increased. And what happens is water goes in through these three inlets. There's a tank underneath where the bench is at the moment, and there's some slotted brick pillars where boards can be placed in. Boards are placed in at the appropriate depth for the navigable height of the water in due course. And once water reaches that depth, the water will go overflow those boards and end down a pipe and down another channel here back to Willstone Reservoir. And that's exactly how it was conceived in the 1790s. So that's where we're getting to. Environmentally, this is a few pictures of the scene. It was December of last year, planting trees. I mentioned that we were planting another 400 trees, which we did, and these were some of the volunteers doing exactly that. And we'll have the same sort of scene going on around about the end of November, beginning of December this year, with another batch of 400 trees that have already been pledged to us. These come from the Woodland Trust, by the way, to whom we're very grateful, together with their appropriate planting instructions, etc. So the biggest challenge that we're facing, as we've mentioned in various ways this afternoon, is to get rid of the old domestic refuse tip at Little Tring. It's the bit in red on the plan here, when starting from 1918, Tring Urban District Council got permission from the then owners of the canal, which was the place then, to use about 270 odd metres of the empty canal at that point, dried out canal, to dump domestic refuse. And it was thought the best possible place to get rid of it so that Lord Rothschild down at his house couldn't smell it. But that was the time when Tring Urban District Council was starting to do the house-to-house collections of refuse and had nowhere to put it, and that's where it is at the moment. So we're in negotiation with Decorum Council, who succeeded with the responsibility for that area, to see whether they will give us some money towards actually removing what is in fact their tip. So here are some of the activities going on, and I pride myself in having a wonderful team to be part of leading here. See some of the activities that are going on, and what I really love when I look at this picture is to see a group of happy people working, and these are people who are working in the lockdown, and at the bottom right there you can see our adjacent neighbour farmer, and Leander there. We just finished building that fence, and she was actually handing it over back to the farmer, and he's going to be having sheep in that field once he's put some wire netting on it. And again, it's brought to life a bit of land that was previously used as a tip. So you can see the improvement in the landscape and the area in these pictures as we're going along. So, did we make progress in the pandemic? Well, absolutely we did, and I'm very grateful to everybody who's helped us to do that. Yes, we no doubt have. Lots of those volunteers that are working for us now came along during the pandemic to get a bit of relief from the situation that we were in, but they brought valuable skills with them. So I'm very grateful on behalf of my colleagues to all of those people. We've got a lot to do, and it's going to cost a lot of money, as we've been outlining this afternoon. So if you're able to help us in some way towards that, it will be most appreciated. But otherwise, I'd just like to thank you all very much indeed for your support. And I promise I will update this slide to say Wendover Canal in future. So thank you very much indeed, everybody. We're now going to go on to the, so I can stop sharing now, Clive. Thank you very much. And I'd like to hand over to our Membership Secretary, Peter Bird, and his lovely assistant to conduct the last part of this afternoon, which is our Club 100 draw. So hang on to your numbers and let's see who the lucky winners are going to be. Peter.
Yes, this is of course a bit tricky on, I think it's better. Here we have the tin with all the tickets in, all ruffled up. Just in case you're concerned, I don't in fact have any tickets for the Club 100. So I'll just get my assistant to pick out the first prize. And if it's above 193, it is not valid. $128, and if I can just tell you who that is. It's Peter Clear of Southampton, and he wins £231.60.
Can you just tell us how many entries we have this month?
193. It's down a bit on what it has been. Ticket number 5.
Number 5.
And that is owned by Richard Abel of Tring. He gets £96.50. So I think I'll better just make a note before I lose myself.
Just to explain why Peter's doing that, the way this works, just to remind you, is that you pay the subscription, and 50% of the subscription comes to the trust to help the restoration, and the other 50% is the prize money that we're giving out today.
Third prize, number 85. And the winner is Graham Watts of Aylesbury. And that is the prize draw. As a matter of interest, he wins £38.60. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and your lovely assistant. Thank you very much indeed, Peter. Just one final, final word I need to add here. It's an advertisement. The Trust needs an archivist. If any of you would like to take on the job of looking after our archives, that's another job that our former Treasurer Clive Wilson was beginning to do for us, but now suddenly won't happen. So if anybody would like to take on the job of the archives and bring our systems up to date, please do get in touch. Or if you know anybody who might be interested in doing that, please do put them in touch with me. So you can find my email address in our newsletter. It's chairman@wendovercanal.org.uk. So that's the end of the meeting.